Have you ever felt like you're being watched? Imagine a quiet suburb, Maplewood, where paranoia is present. Sarah Baxter, an ordinary woman living an ordinary life until the day she became convinced that her neighbor, Mr. Johnson, was observing her every move. A man she had greeted with a friendly nod now seemed to lurk in the shadows. Sarah felt that he was always watching her. Her normal routine gradually morphed into one of paranoia. Every room, every corner, every crevice seemed to be an accomplice in this imagined surveillance, amplifying her growing unease. The unseen gaze of Mr. Johnson seemed to follow her. The idea of hidden cameras within her home took root in her mind, growing into an unshakable belief. Each room she entered, she did so with a sense of trepidation, as if tiptoeing through a minefield. Her home felt like a haunted house, her life under the critical lens of one. The line between reality and paranoia began to blur for Sarah. Her once tranquil home now seemed to be a stage set for an invisible audience. The walls seemed to close in on her, the weight of Mr. Johnson's imagined scrutiny pressing down on her like a heavy hand. Sarah's world was gradually consumed by her growing suspicion. Her once serene existence was now tension-filled, her every move a calculated step. The seed of paranoia had taken root, spreading its tendrils into every aspect of her life. Driven by a compulsion to unveil the truth, she dismantles furniture, scans each corner and peers into the darkest shadows. Each creak of the floorboards, each rustle of the curtains becomes a sinister whisper, a taunt from the unseen eyes that she believes are always watching. Sarah's days morph into a relentless cycle of fear and determination. Her blinds remain perpetually closed, a shield against the voyeuristic gaze of Mr. Johnson. The comforting embrace of sleep is her only reprieve. At night, Sarah's home transforms into a fortress of solitude. She withdraws deeper into a world of conspiracy, her every action a silent protest against the perceived invasion of her privacy. Her accusatory glances towards Mr. Johnson's house become more frequent, her gestures of defiance more pronounced. The veneer of suburban camaraderie crumbles. In the quiet neighborhood, whispers of Sarah's unraveling paranoia begin to circulate. The neighbors become spectators to her descent into suspicion. The mundanity of their conversations, the normalcy of their lives, serves as a stark contrast to Sarah's self-imposed isolation. As the days roll into weeks, Sarah's search for truth becomes an obsession. The evidence of the surveillance she believes to be real consumes her. The whispers of paranoia grow louder. In a desperate attempt to validate her fears, Sarah confronts Mr. Johnson. The usually quiet suburban air vibrates with the intensity of her accusations, her words laced with fear and suspicion piercing the silence. Mr. Johnson, taken aback by the sudden onslaught, reacts with bewilderment, his denial echoing against the walls of their shared boundary. He dismisses her claims, attributing them to an overactive imagination, even suggesting she might need help. But his denial only serves to solidify Sarah's convictions. Each word of dismissal, each shake of the head, each look of incredulity is seen as a veiled attempt to continue his sinister surveillance undetected. To Sarah, his denial is not a sign of innocence, but a cunning strategy in this grand game of deception. The confrontation, far from providing the closure she sought, only deepens her paranoia. Sarah takes drastic measures to reclaim her perceived autonomy. Driven by a desperate need to escape the eyes she believed were always watching, Sarah makes the decision to abandon her home in Maplewood. She takes this leap, believing it to be a leap towards freedom, a retreat from the relentless scrutiny she believes to be at the mercy of. Yet as she settles into her new home, she finds that the specter of surveillance has not been left behind. The paranoia that took root in the quiet suburbia of Maplewood has traveled with her, an uninvited guest in her new sanctuary. The unseen gaze of Mr. Johnson has been replaced by a faceless observer, a phantom presence that haunts her every moment. Every corner is a potential hiding place, every shadow a potential threat. The unseen eyes continue to watch, to judge, to control. She is trapped once more, not by the physical walls of her home, but by the walls of her own mind. And in this realization, Sarah confronts the chilling truth. The truest prisons are not those built of brick and mortar, but those we construct within ourselves. Her prison is her own mind, wrapped in a shroud of paranoia and fear. Even as she tries to escape, she finds herself drawn back into its confines, trapped by her own thoughts and fears. As the seasons change, so do Sarah's surroundings. But the persistent gaze she perceives remains.